California in the Launch Support Center. Now, we began propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes after doing the standard poll of 13 people in the countdown to make sure we were ready to go into propellant load. We're currently loaded with fuel on the first and the second stage. We're going to wrap up liquid oxygen loading at T-minus 2 minutes. You can see right now on the monitor, the strongback is reclining away from the 70-meter tall Falcon 9. The strongback moves to a position of 77 degrees above horizontal, so it's slightly leaned away from the rocket in preparation for liftoff so the Falcon 9 can clear. Now we're working no issues on the Falcon 9. Spacecraft is on internal. They're working no issues. The range is ready to support. Weather continues to support, including the upper altitude winds, which are fairly light tonight. So all systems are looking good at T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Let's listen in to the last minutes of the countdown of Falcon 9 carrying JCSat-16 to geostationary transfer orbit.
M1D TVC ground supply, full pressure. M1D fuel bleed complete. Vehicles in self-align. Stage 1, Stage 2, cryohelium and ACS secured for flight. Stage sub ISO secured.
VC confirm F9 in startup.
Falcon 9's in startup. Stage 1, Stage 2, pressing for flight.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Ground helium closeout complete.
T-minus 20 seconds.
Falcon 9's configured for flight.
15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off of the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 has cleared the towers.
Looking at the Falcon 9 powering its way through the low atmosphere as it heads into the parking low Earth orbit. First stage continues to burn under the power of 9 Merlin 1D engines. We're already through the throttle down and throttle up phase. Coming up to transonic, let's listen in. Currently, Falcon 9 has gone through the supersonic speed transition, what we call going transonic. This is also the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the Falcon 9, where the loads on the vehicle, a combination of the density, the atmosphere at the lower altitudes, and the speed of the rocket, create the greatest loads on the Falcon 9.
This is the OSM.
safe separation.
You hear the cheering. The upper stage engine is lit, completing the sequence of shutdown of the first stage, separation from the first stage, ignition of the upper stage engine as we continue on into the low Earth orbit. That'll be the first of 2 orbits we're headed for tonight. The first, somewhat...
Is the landing burn?
So the landing burn is going to occur, and we actually should be able to see it as from the video that's currently on deck of the drone ship. Now this video hasn't historically been the most reliable. We hope to bring you as high quality video as possible, but there's no Wi-Fi out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We are relying on a satellite link that is susceptible to the vibrations of the landing burn itself.
That's true. So when the rocket descends onto the drone ship, it starts to shake, and the satellite that's pointing up to communicate, or the satellite dish that's pointing up, oh, we're just getting word that the landing burn's beginning. Focus your attention, and we'll see if we can see it.
It looks like we could see the exhaust gases just in the top of the frame.
It seems as though things have frozen, which, like we said, this speed, there's no Wi-Fi out in the Atlantic Ocean yet. So we can't bring you a status update, unfortunately. We would love to know as much as you.
That good orbit is the initial stage. It's that initial low Earth orbit section before the second stage begins a second burn to turn that orbit from a circular...
We'll see you in...
Protect the instrumentation and the sensors on the satellite from the extreme heats that it incurs. So whenever you're in direct sunlight, it gets really hot, and whenever you don't have that sunlight, it can get really cold. So to protect the variation in these temperatures, an MLI is utilized.
It turns out that keeping a spacecraft warm or cold isn't that different than when you want to get warmer at, say, a cold winter night, adding more blankets onto a bed. Multi-layer insulation is essentially just like hundreds of very, very tiny blankets all sandwiched together. And we've been using this to shield our spacecraft since the 60s. The Apollo lunar module had a lot of MLI on it. It's basically the same technology. And we use this to make sure that the electronics inside the spacecraft or satellite stay at exactly the right temperature so that it can stay up for decades at a time.
Yeah. And
different types of technology we use to cool it, like radiators, and then we have electronic heaters onto the spacecraft to make sure that it doesn't get too cold during the long solar nights.
So we're about 15 seconds until payload deploy. The shot that you see on your screen now, that is the nozzle of the second stage engine, which of course is not, it's not lit at the moment. We have cut it off for the second time as we have reached this preferred elliptical space. So we should have a shot of JC-SAT-16 in just a few seconds. In fact, there it is now, and we're just waiting for it to release.
So you're looking at a shot from a camera that's on top of the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, looking towards, and there it goes.
So there's our visual confirmation of a successful separation of JC-SAT-16.
That about brings our mission to a close. It still remains to make sure that the satellite's operating properly, but once that gets fully spun up and moved into its orbit, then our part's totally over. So to recap, we had a successful on-time launch of the first stage and second stage altogether. The second stage continued on towards that low Earth orbit, coast phase, and then second burn, successfully deployed the payload as the first stage made it back to a successful landing on the drone ship from a geostationary transfer orbit, which is checking all the boxes.
At this point, we're about to conclude the webcast. We'd like to thank Sky Perfect JSAT Corporation, our customer. We'd like to thank the Air Force for allowing us to launch off of Cape Canaveral and the FAA. And most of all, thank you, the viewers, for tuning in on a Saturday night to watch us launch a rocket.
If you'd like to join us here at the SpaceX team, be sure to check out spacex.com/careers. Also, be sure to follow us on spacex.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and my personal favorite, our Instagram account. Also, finally, we'd like to dedicate this webcast to Kenny Baker. May he rest in peace, as he was the man that brought life to our favorite droid, R2-D2.